Good afternoon, everybody. Today I'm going to be speaking about asset protection for retirees. Reminder, this is a webinar put on by the Presser Law Firm, PA. A brief overview of today's presentation. We're going to be discussing how your retirement plan and how your estate plan relate to each other. We're going to be discussing some reasons to protect your retirement assets and some key factors to consider when you are planning for your retirement. So to start off, the three reasons why you need to protect your retirement assets are because whatever is left of your retirement becomes your inheritance. This means that you have to be cautious of your retirement planning because you do not want to leave your loved ones with any debts or any issues after you have passed. If you haven't already started planning for it, there is no time like the present to start thinking about your retirement. Whether you're currently working a job that is barely covering the bills or you have a career that allows you to clear 6 figures a year, you have to put some sort of plan in place regarding how you're going to get by once you no longer have that 9 to 5. So you may be wondering what your retirement plan has to do with your estate plan. Like I had mentioned, whatever is left of your retirement becomes your inheritance. And for a majority of people, your retirement is the largest asset that you have. That's why it's important not only to have a retirement plan in place, but also to have I'm just admitting people to the room. So that's why it's important not only to have a retirement plan, but also to have an asset protection plan. So some key factors to consider when planning for your retirement include well, these are the 3 maxims of asset protection planning. You want to protect yourself before you have a problem. You want to start with the basic plan, and you don't have to look for a magic bullet or one right plan. They will adapt and change with you as you adapt and change. This includes protecting your retirement plan. But first, you need to come up with your retirement plan. So what are some key factors when considering your plan for retirement? So some key factors are defining your retirement plan, assessing the available options, determining how much money you would need, and planning for the worst case scenario. So any plan that you have that sets aside money that will be spent after you finish working is the definition of a retirement plan. There are many options, and it can be daunting at times to look at all of the available options. So also your work situation may lead you to think that retirement is not necessarily something to worry about because you rely on a pension or a plan that you've been paying to. But the reality is that you need to determine what that retirement plan option really is saying and doing for you and your retirement. So some retirement options we can get into are you have 401ks, 403bs, and IRAs. So a lot of Americans have employer-sponsored retirement plans. If you work for a company directly as opposed to working freelance or on a temporary basis, it's likely that you already have a basic understanding of an employer-sponsored retirement plan. Basically, these plans allow for employees to make automated payments into a retirement account while offering tax breaks and, in some instances, additional capital in cases where employers are, they match the funds in the account. Two of the most common employer-sponsored retirement plans are 401ks and 403bs. 401ks are the most popular employer-sponsored retirement plan in America. They are established by employers, and eligible employees can utilize them to make contributions by allowing a portion of their salary to be deducted on a post-tax or pre-tax basis. In some instances, employers who offer these plans also contribute to them. And there's also an option for profit sharing to be a feature in the plan. So an important note on 401ks is that they have federal guidelines which determine how much money a person can defer to this type of plan. And they also have strict rules governing distributions of these plans. Those are some things to keep in mind when you are creating a retirement plan. So your 403bs, that's referred to as a tax sheltered annuity or a tax deferred annuity. So unless you work in a nonprofit sector, it's likely that you haven't heard of this type of plan, as it's only available for individuals who work in the nonprofit sector, such as churches, public hospitals, schools, foundations, and these are essentially the equivalent to 401ks. Finally, we have IRAs. You have a simple IRA, which is an option that's utilized usually by small business employers. They follow many of the rules associated with traditional IRAs, but they're still technically an employee-sponsored plan. So moving on to individual retirement plans, we're going to be discussing individual retirement accounts. And while there are different types of IRAs, they do share the distinct feature in that these are individual accounts where money you are setting aside is being paid directly to a bank or a mutual fund company. These plans also usually have a maximum contribution limit, and the limit changes even on a yearly basis. So it's important to check with the IRS to find out what the annual limit is. It's also possible to transfer money from an employer-sponsored account to an IRA when you're leaving employment at that job. All of these restrictions are things that you need to keep in mind when you are planning for your retirement. So traditional IRAs are held in custody by institutions such as commercial banks or retail brokers. When you invest in an IRA, it can be placed into stocks, bonds, or other financial assets that the custodian deems suitable. When looking to place assets into this type of account, it's important to note that items such as real estate are heavily restricted by the IRS, and it's likely that they will be taxed differently. So again, it's important to discuss with your CPA, your financial advisor, your tax advisor, what the implications are of these retirement accounts available to you. Another important thing to keep in mind with an IRA is that there is usually a minimum required distribution. With traditional IRAs, it's mandatory that you begin taking distributions by April 1st, the year after you turn 70. Note that 70, the age is always changing as well. So that is something you should confirm with the IRS before making your plan. Additionally, you can only make contributions into a traditional IRA until you're 70. So that means that once you turn 70, not only are you not allowed to contribute to your IRA anymore, but you are also required to take minimum distributions, meaning that from the point of 70, your account will no longer be able to grow, and you will only be taking distributions from that account. And another important note on these distributions and contributions is that both your withdrawals and distributions are taxable. And if you're under the age of 59, there's a possibility that you will need to pay an additional 10% tax for withdrawals unless you qualify for an exception. So there's a lot of factors to go into making your decision on which retirement account is best for you and which plan is best for your retirement. Additionally, we have Roth IRAs. Now, Roth IRAs are a retirement plan that provides for tax-free income distribution. It's tax-free because you use tax dollars to contribute to the plan. So this type of retirement account is an ideal choice for a younger, low-income individual who will benefit from tax-free income once they retire. Or it's also beneficial for older, wealthier individuals who use these accounts in their overall estate plan. So Roth IRAs are great for estate planning, especially if you already have other retirement income saved. Unlike traditional IRAs, which disallow contributions and require mandatory distributions after a certain age, Roth IRAs do not have any stipulations of that sort for the original account holder. This means that you can continue to save money and allow that money to grow tax-free for your future beneficiaries. If an account is left to a loved one, they will then be required to take distributions over the course of their lives. But all the funds they receive from those distributions will be tax-free. So although the original account holder does not have to have mandatory distributions with a Roth IRA, if you do leave it to your descendant will have to take required distributions, although they will be tax-free income. So there are also income eligibility limits relative to setting up Roth IRAs, but the majority of Americans are generally eligible. To determine your eligibility, the IRS looks at both your filing status and your income. The Roth IRA offers a great deal of flexibility relative to when you can deduct money and what you can use it for. While you generally have to be an account holder for at least 5 years, and you must be at least 59 years old before you can remove funds without penalties from this account, it's important to note that in the event of a disability, an exception is made. So that's another reason why a Roth IRA is a great estate planning tool, because should you, for whatever reason, then become disabled, it's possible for you or your loved ones on your behalf to have access to these funds without penalties, early fees and such. So it's also possible for you to remove up to $10,000 to be used towards the purchase of your first home for either yourself or family members. And additional exceptions may exist for you. So it's definitely worth looking in speaking with a qualified tax professional to see if there's any other tax benefits that you in your particular situation may be eligible for with an Roth IRA. So another great question that clients ask us a lot regarding their retirement planning is, should they diversify? And we say yes. We believe that diversification is a great way to hedge your bets in retirement. You can diversify already with your existing retirement plan in terms of how those funds are invested, or you could consider additional investments. For example, you can consider investing in real estate that produces income for you or that is brought when the market is at a low. You can consider investing in private equity mortgages. And all of these things should be discussed with your financial advisor to see if they're suitable for you and your situation. But they can be an additional revenue source for you when you are ready to retire. So you're not solely dependent on your retirement accounts. So how much will you need to retire? So the exact amount that you'll need is going to vary based on numerous personal factors. However, there are websites where you can get a general idea for how much money you will need by utilizing a retirement calculator. I placed a link up here on the presentation that you can go ahead and copy and put in your information, and that should give you some sort of idea. Such calculations don't account for the worst case scenarios though. So it can serve you with a better idea of how much money you should be saving in order to be as secure as possible. However, the worst case scenarios are not accounted for in those retirement calculators. That's why it's important to do your own retirement planning and to play what we call the what if game. So the unfortunate truth is that even the best laid plans can be thrown off course as a result of a single problematic event. It's not possible to know exactly when disaster is going to strike or if it's going to strike at all, but it is possible to acknowledge that bad things can happen. So by playing the what if game, we consider, possible situations and therefore possible solutions before the problem occurs. So I'm just going to go through a couple what ifs with you guys. So for instance, what if you lost your job? Losing a job, you have a loss of the source of income, but your expenses persist. So, it can be problematic for a variety of reasons. So not only do you continue to have expenses, but you lose your source of income. But if you only have an employee-sponsored retirement plan, you don't lose that money in the account, but you lose the ability to continue to contribute to it. Additionally, depending on how long you're out of work, you may need to remove money from your retirement savings in order to keep afloat. So there's nothing you can do to ensure that you'll be consistently employed for as long as you seek employment. However, you can use tools such as diversifying the ways in which you're saving for your retirement, where you can minimize the likelihood that you'll deplete your savings in full when you're out of work. Another common situation is, what if you lose your home? Whether you're the victim of a foreclosure or if your home is unfortunately destroyed in a natural disaster, such as a hurricane or a fire, losing your house is a traumatic experience as it is. And it only is made more devastating when you begin to add up the costs of rebuilding your life and rebuilding your home. And that unfortunately can mean that you're going to spend some of the money that you saved for retirement. So there are two things that you can do to avoid ending up in this situation. First is to do everything within the bounds of the law to protect your home from creditors. A qualified asset protection planner can supply you with some options to protect your home from creditors. And additionally, you can get insurance. So while insurance won't save you from being foreclosed, you can use insurance to help recuperate some of the losses in the event of a natural disaster. And any money that you get from insurance is money you don't have to remove from your retirement savings. What if you unexpectedly become a caregiver? People are living longer, and there is an expectation that at some point in time, you will have an individual or shared responsibility to take care of your aging, possibly ailing parents or in-laws or relatives close to you. Having the responsibility of, taking on and becoming a caregiver can be financially taxing. And it's especially true if the person you become a caregiver for is either unable to contribute financially or their contributes do not cover the extent of the expenses. So it might be tempting to start skimming money from your own retirement when you're faced with situations like this, but it's not necessarily the best route. Keeping an open dialogue with your parents, your children, and your loved ones can definitely help deter some of these unexpected expenses by encouraging them to discuss their own retirement plans and, especially talking to your children about making smart financial choices early on. This is why multi-generational planning is so important. A qualified asset protection planner or a qualified estate planning attorney could help you plan for the multi-generation retirement and financial planning and security. So also, another what if scenario, what if you can't pay off your debts? If you owe money now and you aren't working with your creditor to pay it off, then debt is a financial issue that will follow you into retirement. And once you're retired, that debt will actually become more difficult to pay because you'll be relying on a fixed income for all your needs. The simplest solution is to start paying your debt now. Talk to your creditors, set up a payment plan, and it may benefit you to speak with a financial advisor so they can guide you on how to avoid going back into debt once you paid your current debt off. And our final what if scenario is, what if you live much longer than you expected? This may seem like a strange question after all. Most people hope for a long life, but let's be clear. There's nothing wrong with living a long life, but the longer you live, the more years your retirement savings will be needed to sustain you. Planning for this is simpler than you think. Whenever possible, add additional funds into whatever plans allow you to do so. And in the event you receive an inheritance or a settlement, it's in your best interest to set aside a significant portion of those funds into some sort of retirement account. So next, we're going to go over some ways you can ruin your retirement. So failing to plan is a big way you can ruin your retirement. It almost guarantees that you'll experience some sort of financial struggle once you're retired. It doesn't need to be a daunting or difficult process. Check with your employer to see what options they offer. Select a plan that works best for you. And additionally, look into individual retirement options and accounts to make sure you diversify your retirement plan. Failing to protect your assets is also a common mistake, especially for people who feel like they don't really have anything worth protecting. The truth is that everybody needs some sort of asset protection. Basic asset protection can be discussed, is going to be discussed in another webinar, but for now, we'll just say that it's something that you should not neglect because the consequences could be serious. Another way to ruin your retirement is spoiling yourself or your loved ones. It can be incredibly tempting to spoil yourself or your loved ones once you retire. And not having to work, you spend so much time with your family and there's more opportunities to spend your money. So taking up an expensive hobby, traveling extensively, splurging, it can be fun, but it can also be the source of major financial issues that you realistically may not be able to fully recover from. You don't have to deny yourself or those you care about with new things or new experiences, but be realistic about your budget and plan accordingly. You may not be able to take several international trips a year, but it may be perfectly feasible for you to take one a year. Similarly, you may not be able to buy each of your grandchildren a car, but you could probably provide them with a safe used car of some sort or an alternative. Like, the key here is really to consider what's important to you and to temper that against what is financially possible for you. Another way to ruin your retirement is to rely primarily on funds other than those on a structured retirement account. Consider that if you're expecting an inheritance or a settlement, that they may be smaller than you previously imagined, and investments can go sour. There's nothing wrong with looking into a variety of ways to save for your retirement. In fact, it's best if you don't rely on a single account for all your retirement needs and diversify those funds. But in this vein, you may want to buy some stock or look at other ways of investing your money into projects you can believe can be prosperous. However, you just don't want to rely on these methods, provided that all or even most of the funds that you'll be investing, probably you'll need to retire. And finally, taking early Social Security benefits, it may seem like a good idea if you retire early, especially since you can start collecting as early as the age of 62. But it does get problematic for you in the future. By collecting early, you're likely locking a lower monthly payment for the rest of your life, which means that you'll have to rely more heavily on other retirement savings. Retirement savings, by their designation, is meant to be spent to cover the costs once you've retired. However, they can also be included in part of your estate. Noting this, if you spend less of your retirement funds and you have more money to leave to your beneficiaries. This doesn't mean that you should deprive yourself of anything, but it's just to ensure that there'll be something, some money left over to leave to your loved ones. So that being said, if you start planning early, you can really see the value of advanced planning. You can, your kids will be seeing the value, and their kids can even be seeing the value. Worst case scenarios are definitely something you want to be mentioning when you're making your retirement plan, but it's just note that the worst case scenario would be not even making a plan. So finally, we're going to finish this webinar with an exercise. And this exercise is to consider your retirement. So, do you currently have a retirement plan in place? If yes, what's the plan or plans that you are utilizing, and how much do you have saved? If not, list all the reasons why you don't have a plan. When you're reviewing, if you do have a current retirement plan in place, it's important to look at exactly what type of plan that is and how much is in it. After reviewing the presentation, it's a good idea to when you're reviewing your plan, it's a good idea to see what other options there are at the time that you are reviewing your retirement plan. Is it a good time to invest? Is it a good time to look at other types of retirement accounts? Retirement accounts in general are protected from general creditors and general lawsuits, but once you take that money out of your retirement account, it's no longer protected. So that's another factor to consider when you're reviewing your retirement plan, if you have one. The next question you want to ask yourself is, do you feel secure with the preparations that you've made for your retirement thus far? You know, what gives you that feeling of security, or what is missing that you feel could make you feel more secure? Have you calculated how much you'll need to save for your retirement? That is a very important step in planning for your retirement, in both matters of estate planning and asset protection. Being realistic in how much you'll need and how much you will need to save for your retirement is important, and also to keep in mind any worst case scenarios. So what if, do you think, is the most likely worst case scenario that could affect your retirement plan? Unfortunately, not a lot of people like to think of, worst case scenarios, but it's needed in order to have the most accurate retirement plan that you can have. Preparing for these things is important, because once you are retired, your ability to recover from any significant financial loss is hindered. And finally, ask yourself, what, if any, of your own habits do you feel may adversely affect your retirement plan? So if you have any expensive habits, or if you are very generous, you need to really look and review your own habits and your own financial habits to determine what your best retirement plan is. And with that, you can go ahead and participate in our Q&A. Go ahead and submit your questions via email. I thank you for participating in this webinar, and we most certainly look forward to hearing from you. Additionally, for more information, you can go to our website and you can sign up for our weekly newsletter, request a copy of our asset protection books, and you can even schedule a complimentary preliminary consultation with our attorneys here at the Presser Law Firm. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.